Hi, I'm Linda Robinson, author of Death at the Sanctuary. I would like to read the first chapter of my book to you. I hope you decide you like it. Go on Amazon. 20% of the proceeds go to animal conservation. I am deeply passionate about animals. This book is a mystery thriller. It is about an animal caretaker who finds her boyfriend mauled to death in an animal sanctuary in the lion enclosure. She knows that the lions didn't do it. So it's a mystery thriller about her checking out the clues and finding out what really happened to her boyfriend. So without further ado, I'm going to read you the first chapter of my book and we can enjoy it together. I'm reading it out of my study. I chose this because this is where I wrote most of the book. It's a beautiful Sunday morning in San Antonio, Texas, so you might hear people mowing their lawns or dogs barking, and I'm actually going to mow my lawn after I read this. I'm in my lawn mowing clothes. So let's get started because I know I have to do that. The first chapter is titled Loss. A Jeep Renegade trailed along a foggy country road just outside Kerrville, Texas. It was 6 a.m., almost 2 hours before sunrise. All the windows were down. The warm October breeze teased Mac Williams' spiky red hair and filled her nose with smells of cedar and dirt. With the wheel in one hand, a donut in the other, and a coffee snugly secured between her thighs, Mac belted out the melody of Born to be Wild with the note precision of a pubescent boy. A dozen chocolate-covered donuts with rainbow sprinkles sat in the passenger seat, ready for her to share with her boyfriend Keen. She was about to take another bite of donut when a pair of glowing yellow eyes appeared in the path of the Jeep. "Shh!" was all Mac managed to say as she jerked the steering wheel right. Swerving around the Dios, her donut flew left out the window, and the box of donuts tumbled into the side door. Hot coffee splashed her thighs, and Mac hissed in pain. She caught sight of the deer's fluffy white tail in the rearview mirror as it bounded into the dark, tree-covered landscape. Max straightened the Jeep on the road. She glanced over and was relieved to see the donut box still closed. She reached over and repositioned on the seat. "Damn fog," she cursed under her breath. Mac brushed the hot liquid off her uniform khakis. The cloth quickly turned to an uncomfortable warm dampness that clung to her skin. "Great, thanks a lot, Bambi." She continued along her route more slowly, hoping to avoid another mishap. Shortly, the wrought iron gates of Josephine Animal Welfare Sanctuary, JAWS, came into view. They were wide open. I just want to take a little break here. So, Josephine is actually the middle name of my grandmother who came over from Ireland. And she's was a very strong figure in my life as a very strong woman, went through the Depression, had 10 children, raised them all, loved her to death, saint of all women. So I kind of wanted to include her in the book. So that's where I got the name Josephine, and then I wanted to have like a catchy acronym because I did do 8 years in the Air Force, so acronyms are our thing. So that's why I named it JAWS. Just a little tidbit, back to the book. The gates are always closed, Mac worried. She turned into the driveway and started up a hilly dirt road that led to the main compound. As she crested the first hill, red and blue flashing lights broke through the darkness, like spotlights in a prison escape. Mac's mouth froze open. Oh no, the lights are coming from the lion enclosure. Her thoughts quickly turned to worry about King. But then she reminded herself that he wasn't back from San Antonio yet. His motorcycle wasn't parked in front of his trailer when she left early this morning. She relaxed a little. Mac drove past the circle of buildings that made up the sanctuary's offices and food facilities and headed toward the lights. She drove up and around a rutted dirt road. The earth was mostly dry, but she splashed through small potholes of standing water left from weeks of intermittent rain. The country managed to barely stay beneath dangerous flood levels. The county managed to barely stay between dangerous flood levels, which she was grateful for. The sanctuary itself was on high ground, but all roads leading in were low and flooded for hours, if not days, when the 100-year floods came almost every 3 years. Mac noticed that there was no sound, no frogs, cicadas, not one chirp. As her Jeep climbed towards the lion enclosure, the fog thinning with a slight change in altitude. If you're not from San Antonio, cicadas are these alien-like green bugs that made a really loud buzzing noise. But they are kind of comforting, kind of like crickets from Indiana, which is where I'm from. The Sheriff's Patrol SUV came into view. She could see Nancy, the director of JAWS, yelling at Sheriff Moore in front of the enclosure. This gave Mac more worry, as Nancy was always calm, except when talking about the animals in her care. And then she was as animated and as passionate as a high school debate team. Sheriff Moore was a tall, barrel-chested man, and right now he had a gun pointed at the lions. Nancy was his equally sized opponent. She was farm girl thick and almost 6 feet herself, matched the sheriff's height. "No, don't shoot," Nancy screamed at him. Nancy ran towards the sheriff as Mac saw another officer, Deputy Allen, grab her, barely able to restrain her from launching herself at Sheriff Moore. "Stop! What are you doing?" Mac slammed the Jeep into park so quickly it lurched to a stop. She jumped to the ground and ran towards the trio. The sheriff lowered his gun and stood to face her. "All of you calm down," the sheriff shouted. He raised hands towards Mac, warning her to keep her distance. Her feet skidded to a halt. She looked past him into the cage. Thor, the sanctuary's only male lion, had someone, and was chewing him like a toddler with a teething ring. Just to take a break here, so Thor is actually the name of one of my dogs who heard his name. So he came up. Yeah, good boy. Just say hello. So we'll start with, She looked past him into the cage. Thor, the sanctuary's only male lion, had someone, and was chewing him like a toddler with a teething ring. Matt couldn't see if the person was male or female. She could only see brown matted hair. The rest of his body was guarded by Thor's large frame. The rescue sometimes had people sneak on the property attempting to see the lions. This crazy soul somehow managed to break into the enclosure. "Don't shoot, Thor," she pleaded. "Are they alive? Who is it?" "We don't think so, and we don't know. We can't even get close, so it has to be shot," the sheriff yelled, then turned again, gun raised. "Just wait!" Mac ran past him and put herself between the gun and the lion behind the fence. It was just her and Sheriff Moore, as the deputy was still occupied with Nancy. "Move aside." He swayed the gun from left to right. Mac swayed with it, blocking a clear shot to Thor. "No, just give me a chance. He's not an it, that's Thor." She raised her hands in a cautious surrender manner. She glanced back and saw that whoever Thor held in his paws was not moving. Thor licked him with his huge pink tongue. Max shuddered and felt bile rise in her throat. The taste reminded her of grade school pizza. She swallowed it down and forced herself to focus on the situation. "I don't care if it's a he or an it. I need to get to that person." Sheriff Moore's tone was irritated and growing impatient, but he lowered his gun and waited for Mac to continue. "Just 1 second, please. Let me get something from the supply shed." Everyone stared at the sheriff, waiting. The deputy still held Nancy, but neither of them seemed to be resisting each other. If it wasn't for the situation, they would resemble a couple in a playful embrace. "You have 10 seconds, Sheriff Moore conceded, his voice flat, his face expressionless. Mac ran to the supply shed next to the enclosure. She threw open the doors and quickly pulled out a toddler-sized milk bottle from the refrigerator. She sprinted back, milk sloshing, holding the bottle in front of her like a shield. She didn't look at the body. She knew she wouldn't be able to focus if she did. "Thor?" Mac's voice was weak and shaky. The large cat did not look up. Mac cleared her throat and banged the bottle on the fence. "Thor," she said with authority. "Bottle." The king of beasts looked up. Blood stained his mouth as he eyed his favorite drink. Mac felt an unfamiliar pang of fear and distrust for Thor. "That's it, baby, you see it. Come and get a drink." She tapped the bars this time. He stood, seeming to debate the decision of following her against leaving his plaything. Mac felt her eyes start to droop to the crumpled figure, but quickly lifted them. "Come on, Thor." Mac kept Thor's attention on the milk and not the person lying motionless at his feet. He started to walk towards her. She saw the gate leading to the second enclosure, the one Thor was supposed to be in, was partially opened. She walked along the fence towards it, just ahead of Thor, as he followed. Mac glanced over her shoulder. The sheriff had once again focused his barrel at the lion's head. "Please, Sheriff," she whispered, her eyes pleading. "Just give me 1 more second. He's almost there." Sheriff Moore looked at Mac and gave her a slight nod, but didn't lower his gun. Tapping on the fence like a dinner bell, she slowly led Thor to the gate. When he reached the threshold, Thor paused reluctantly. "Come on, Thor," Mac encouraged. "You get the whole bottle." Max stuck the large rubber nipple through the fence wire just beyond the gate. What seemed to be all the promise he needed. Thor stepped forward towards his prize. Once his back legs cleared the gate's path, Nancy broke free of the deputy and pulled a lever that lowered the door with a crash. Thor's lips turned up in a snarl, and he gave an angry roar at the traitorous act. "Thor!" Mac yelled and walked with the bottle to where his den was. She tapped on the den wall and again put the bottle through the fence. This aroused Xena, his mate, who appeared from her den and started to suckle on the bottle. With his toy behind a gate and his milk being stolen, Thor walked quickly to his den and pushed away from the bottle. Mac let him take long draws of the milk before she grabbed another lever and pulled it down, lowering the door and enclosing both of the lions in the safety of their dens. Mac turned around to see Sheriff Moore, Deputy Allen, then Nancy all rushed through the first gate. "Hello, can anyone hear me? Are you okay?" the sheriff yelled as he quickly opened the gate and made it to the unfortunate soul. "Who is it?" Mac called out. The bottle emptied, she let it dangle behind her side. She saw Nancy cover her mouth in a silent film gasp as Sheriff Moore knelt and checked for a pulse. Everyone was quiet. Mac kept looking at Nancy's eyes. There was horror in them, and she kept looking from the body to Mac. A warning bell went off in Mac's brain. When the sheriff finally withdrew his fingers, they were covered in blood. He was shaking his head. "Who is it?" Mac demanded. "Poor guy," Deputy said sympathetically. "What a horrible way to go." Mac dropped the empty bottle and ran towards the enclosure. When she reached the gate, the deputy blocked her from entering. "You don't want to see this." He held her shoulders as she looked around him, then at Nancy. Nancy slowly lowered her hands from her face. "It's Keen." Nancy barely breathed the words. At the mention of her boyfriend's name, Mac's heart felt like it stopped. So that is chapter 1. I hope you enjoy it. Again, I'm on Amazon. And I might do a few more readings. I've enjoyed this. I was thinking of doing some readings in different parts of San Antonio or Kerrville, where the book was, what the book is based on, or the stories, I should say. And that is all. Enjoy your day, and I'm going to go mow my lawn.